Hi there! So thanks for checking this video out. I've been wanting to make it for a good while now, and I figured I should go ahead and do that. So, with regard to the current conflict um, in Israel and Palestine, there is one particular incident, I guess you could call it, through that we can learn from history all the way back in the 90s that really makes it crystal clear that Israel is a, settler colonial project uh, that is, propped up by the West for their interests and not an actual, like, you know, force for good in any capacity in regards to the people who already lived there. So you see this I guess tale involves two settlements, one Beit Sahour, um, and then Har Homa, one that began construction in the late 90s. Coincidentally, also when um, Netanyahu was, I think he had just been ousted in a no confidence vote. Uh, blatantly was saying he did not support a two-state solution or Palestinian statehood at all. So his intentions were clear. Everybody knew it. The whole world knew it. We let him get back in power. We let all this happen. We the West, let over 30,000 civilians be murdered for this cause. It was clear as day that that was the intentions of the government. And yeah, I think it should be something that's called out. And I think it should be something that we keep in the forefront of our minds as we're navigating all this stuff. Uh, so that said, let's go back and read about the history of Beit Sahour. Um, it is a town east of Bethlehem, inside of Palestine. I believe it's in the West Bank, which that already should tell you why exactly is there an Israeli settlement in the West Bank, and what is it there for? Well, if you go right to the Wikipedia page, it's right there. One purpose given for the decision approving of its establishment was to obstruct the growth of the nearby Palestinian city of Bethlehem. All right. Good on the Christian West, supporting causes like that. Anywho, um, so let's get back over here. The current the recent population figures identify it as 80% Christian and 20% Muslim. Um, there's just some more history. The mainly Christian Palestinian inhabitants are being pressured by encroaching Israeli settlements, with one housing development threatened with demolition. Again, it's like kind of cut and dry there. Um, and that's from a source in the Times here. That's probably worth reading. Um, so let's go down to the history and just double check, uh, you know, perhaps who has like whose claims for indigenousness are valid. I don't think indigenousness is a word. Sorry, but it's definitely something to review. Beit Sahour was uninhabited until the 14th century, when a number of Muslim and Christian families from Jordan settled in caves on the site of the modern village. Another Christian family arrived in the 17th century. And then there's more immigration from Egypt and Syria. The Ottomans incorporated them into the empire in 1517. There's a lot of history there. But really, I'd kind of like to jump past a lot of that stuff to pointing out to one specific thing, and that's kind of the whole point of this video. Not really to review it entirely, but to look at this one incident as a microcosm of this entire conflict and proving the illegitimacy of the Israeli state, and therefore, by extension, every government that upholds it. because they know full and well what it is. I've been frankly quite disgusted over these last kind of couple of months at the they kind of pretend like, oh, well, this is just an unfortunate happening. It's like, no, they knew good and well that this was going to happen and was, you know, woven into the status quo that Israel upholds, and therefore they uphold, and therefore we as citizens uphold with our tax dollars, right? So it's you know, something I just encountered recent, or well, sort of recently, is let's see if I can find it. City of Durham contributions to Israel. I'm not quite sure if I can find it again, but I saw a figure that just a city in my state, Durham, was sending like millions to Israel, or maybe it was the full state. I'm not quite sure, but annually they were sending like tons of money. I really just wanted to talk about this little area here, political activism. So this is something really neat about Beit Sahour's history, something I think all of us, as we fight against injustice and, unjustified structures of domination in our current status quo, here's a really cool example of regular working people fighting against it in ways that aren't explicitly violent, right? Because I think that's a lot of folks' reservations with holding the status quo accountable is the kind of the violence that's woven into that. And then here we have an avenue to, um, deal with it without violence. Um, or at least there was an attempt. And it was a good attempt. It was definitely functional because Israel retaliated against them, and it should have worked a lot better, but they were failed by the UN. Again, all the way back in the 90s. Like, this has been an ongoing thing. They've been consistently failed by the West. And the fact that this settlement exists at all is a testament to that. Anyway, though, so Beit Sahour is a center of Palestinian political activism. The town played a key role in the first and second intifadas, with local activists pioneering nonviolent resistance techniques. During the first intifada and the second intifada, the Palestinian Center for Rapprochement Between Peoples, based in Beit Sahour, encouraged nonviolent activism under the aegis of International Solidarity Movement, which is awesome, and we should check that out. George Rishmawi is the director. All right, all right. Yeah, they have a slogan of "break bread, not bones." That's something I think we can all get behind. um, the alternative information. Um, yeah, tax resistance. Um, and then this was another cool thing too. They had tours, but they would use that as a backdrop for showing the effects the occupation and land confiscation had on Palestinian people. Again, cut and dry. Here's the source if you'd like to check that out. Again, I think it would be a good thing. But the tax resistance is really what I wanted to have this video be about. So in 1989, during the first intifada, the Palestinian resistance urged people to stop paying taxes to Israel, who inherited the modified and modified the previous Jordanian tax collection in the West Bank. They quite literally used the same phrase we did here in the United States, no taxation without representation. So again, like, whose side are is the West pretending to be on here? Like, how hypocritical can they be going against the individuals who used the same slogan they did to establish their nation, right? The military authorities do not represent us, and we did not invite them to come to our land. Must we pay for the bullets that kill our children or for the expenses of the occupying army? The people of Beit Sahour responded to this call with an organized citywide tax strike They included refusal to pay and file tax returns. Cool. Israel's defense minister responded with, "We will teach them there is a price for refusing the laws of Israel." They then placed the town under curfew for 42 days, blocked food shipments into the town, cut telephone lines to the town, tried to bar reporters from the town, imprisoned 10 residents, and seized in house-to-house raids millions of dollars in money and property belonging to 350 families. Again, there's quite a parallel to draw with regard to what's been going on since October 7th. In regard to that, they've continued doing the same thing. Imagine that. Because the West didn't hold them accountable 30, 40 years ago, they've continued doing the same stuff. They have continued to essentially steal in house-to-house raids. Again, cut and dry. That's pretty unjustified. I don't know who in their right mind would say that this is re-indigenization, this is not colonial settling, this is abject theft, this is wrong, this is not something the West should be upholding or our tax dollars should be upholding. And in my humble opinion, is pretty damning evidence that the entire Western neoliberal status quo uh, has no right to exist. How can you justify that? How is that any different from things that we demonize and we say we've moved past, like Nazism and other things? Uh, Also, on top of that, the Israeli military stopped the consuls general of Belgium, Britain, France, Greece, Italy, Spain, and Sweden when they attempted to go to Beit Sahour and investigate the conditions there. You know, if they're not guilty, don't they have nothing to hide? Why are they stopping them? Why do they have the ability to do that? And then why then are all these countries, ones in the UN, having to bend the knee to Israel despite this going on? Again, completely, this should be viewed as criminal. But here we are, 30,000 civilians dead many years later because this stuff was allowed to happen, right? To me, it's cut and dry. So yeah, they got the authority to create and enforce taxes beyond the baseline Jordanian code enacted in 63. During the Intifada, they used the authority to impose taxes on Palestinians as collective punishment measures to discourage them. For instance, the glass tax for broken windows, the stones tax for damage done by stones, the missile tax for Gulf War damage, and a general Intifada tax, among others. Here's the source. Albert Einstein Institution. Again, Albert Einstein. Great thing to review. They don't really teach us his political views. You don't really encounter them at any point in navigating your life. You have to go out of your way to find them. Might be a reason for that. Definitely would recommend checking them out. The UN considered a resolution demanding that Israel return the property it confiscated during the Beit Sahour tax resistance. The US vetoed the resolution, which was supported by the other 11 council members. Again, cut and dry. The exact same thing still happening. We cannot keep waiting for a bastard state like ours to just suddenly grow a conscience and do the right thing. This nation will be hell bent on maintaining these conditions that have civilian murder woven into them until it stops existing, until it is effectively, undone, until the original crimes that were committed to establish the nation are finally rectified and it can stop, upholding things that have civilian murder woven into it. So yeah. That's that. I wanted to point that out. And then if we go over to the Har Homa Wikipedia, specifically this area, let's go and double check that. Also, really quickly here, I just want to double check that I'm not running out of space because I'm worried that I am. Oh, it doesn't tell me. Great. uh, so yeah, the settlement, yada yada yada. Where was it? Where was it? Where was it? Oh well. We'll just say the land was expropriated in 91. Again, go look at who was leading Israel in 91. The international community considers Israeli settlements in East Jerusalem illegal under international law, but the Israeli government disputes this. Like again, cut and dry. What how can we excuse this? How can we go one day, right? One day, October 8th, we should have looked at this and been like, okay, this entire status quo is rotten to the core. There is no excusing this, right? Why is it allowed to continue? We need to look really closely, zero in at exactly what mechanisms are allowing this to continue, who's responsible, why it's happening, why nothing's done about it, right? you know? Uh, yeah, here we go. So they started building it in the 90s. Plans for the development were drawn up all the way back in the 80s, but were opposed by Israeli environmental groups working to preserve the open areas. So again, another thing that's very important, right? Conflating the problems of war and the environmental issues and settler colonialism and all that stuff, you know, they all harm the earth. They all harm human beings in the same way. They're not justified anymore. Why are we keeping them around? Again, we gotta look at that. we gotta analyze it, and then we gotta look at ways to take it apart, and so we can have a world that doesn't have crimes like this woven into the status quo, right? Which is again why I think this is such a neat thing to study here. Um, Yeah, both Jewish and Arab landowners protested seizures and appealed to the Israeli Supreme Court, which denied their claims and ruled in favor of the government. Part of the land is said to have also been owned by the Greek Orthodox Church and allegedly either sold or leased after severe pressure was applied by Israel on church authorities. Again, cut and dry. After the first land expropriations in 95, Arab states brought the case before the UN Security Council. In May 95, a draft condemning Israel was vetoed by the US. Israeli Prime Minister, they initially improved construction plans, but postponed the groundbreaking ceremony to avoid conflict with Palestinians who were seeking to overturn the decision in the courts. In 95, they decided to not proceed, right? So then, okay, let's go back. 97, the newly elected Netanyahu government approved the construction. The Arab states again went to the Security Council. The General Assembly condemned Israel's actions, but two UNSC resolutions in March were again vetoed by the US. In March 97, the Netanyahu government, which saw the construction of homes in Har Homa as a legitimate expansion of Jerusalem. Again, this is the guy who said he does not support Palestinian statehood. Think about what that means in material reality. They started the work. In March of 2015, yet Netanyahu said we had to protect the southern gateway by building here. There were huge objection as Har Homa is a location which prevents the Palestinian territorial contiguity. 2014, he approved 400 more units. In 2020, he announced another 6,200 homes. in a move which was seen as an effort to solidify right wing support just days before the election. Again, the layers, all this stuff interacting, right? It's so important to really understand exactly how all this stuff works and how it's all related globally, right? Anywho, that was that I think that was all that I wanted to mention. I think it's especially uh, damning, I guess, that there were Israeli and Jewish environmental groups saying like, "Hey, don't do this," and they still did it, right? They're at odds with their own citizens and the earth and humanity as a whole, right? Why is this what our status quo supports? Why is this what our taxes are going to? Why is this what our labor is going to, right? We're working a job 40 hours a week, essentially sacrificing that time so it can go to things like this. So it can go to murdering 30,000 civilians who had nothing really to do with all this. And again, think about it in a broader sense beyond Israel. Think about the climate crisis, right? Upheld by these very same institutions that will result in civilian murder on a just obscene scale for the same reasons, right? Just something to think about as we move forward. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.